Yeah, mirror. Bridge I showed you already. Curve I don't really use. This is something that can be useful, is to do an instance. You could use the clone, for example, to do an instance clone, and it will let me just show you, it's quicker. So if you hold Alt, will bring the instance possibility for some of these tools. So I'll use that instance clone, and I'll click, and as usual, just drag, do whatever I want. And basically these now, instead of being normal geometry, they are instances of this base geometry that they started from. And you can see it because the lines of the edges here are purple or pink compared to the black of these. And I will go back to visibility to get rid of the selection normals, and also not show the vertices because that's pretty annoying. Okay, so if I do anything on these now, it will populate the other ones, and that's very useful when you do repeating architectural stuff like corridor or any sort of thing with repeating shapes like columns and things like that. You can model one, and then even if you're not finished modeling it, you could duplicate it with an instance and then keep working on it and change things. And it's dude, it's so helpful. You'll see, I'm sure. So that's the instancing, and you can also do it by instancing from this menu, from the item list. So for example, I have Control C, do a new mesh with N, or just add item and then mesh here. It will create an empty mesh in the item list where I can paste my polygons that I just copied. I'm just going to move it around to see better. And you can here right click on the item, right click, and then instance. It will make an instance that you can then might not be that. I might have to do instance hierarchy or not. How the fuck does it work? I don't remember. Because it's in the same spot as the other one. I don't really know how to move it independently. Why aren't you working? Transform. Okay, I found it. So basically you have to select the item that you want to move. This one, the mesh, and then click transform, move, and then you can move it independently. And same thing, so you could take that and just work with it in this way. And you can do it symmetrically also by doing a clone on the mirror. So if I build, this one's already instanced, so I'll delete that, rebuild it. Alright, I'm going to instance mirror here. If you click Alt, see you can mirror normal, so you'll have two pieces of geometry or normal geometry, and then you can click instance and do that. And then this part now is an instance of this part, so you can take this one and move it. It will move together, and it will also replicate what you do on this part. So for symmetrical things, it's pretty cool to have, because you don't really want to do it twice, and you know what I mean. It's really quick to have symmetry. See how that works. These I don't really use. The array maybe. So if I do radial array, here I have a big count, so it's kind of a mess. But instead of cloning it in a line, we'll clone it around the center point that you define, and around the axis that you want. Also, you can also change the axis. Here in the X, and if I move it, it will duplicate around that, and you can do all sorts of crazy things like this. And you can imagine how quickly you can build at least the impression of a space by using basic forms like that. It doesn't have to be too complicated. You don't have to model everything. And then here, because I have a instance, I can keep modifying my geometry, and it will propagate all along the way. So that's quite useful. Let's keep going on this. I'll just delete everything because this is starting to be stupid. Create a new mesh and new cube, basic rectangle. Also, if you're annoyed, like you have the camera that's right there, you don't want to see it because it has no use right now because I'm modeling, you go to O or here and then viewport settings, and in visibility you can click show camera and lights, and it will get rid of these stupid icons that are useless for now. But if you at the end you have to see them, then you don't forget, go back to here, viewport settings, or in the viewport O, and we'll bring up this menu where you have all these options. Okay, I was going to do mesh edit. So I showed you the slice, which is draw a plane, and it will slice, basically add an edge all along the geometry. So sometimes quite useful. It depends what you do. As always, curve slice is kind of the same, but you have the option to make it as a curve. Look at it this way. Oops. And here now you have this curve that you can, use to create more geometry, more complicated stuff. It's quite cool. The one that I think might be very useful is the loop slice. So Alt C in this case, and it will just get rid of all this because it's getting complicated. Control Z, basic Photoshop thing. Okay, if I take a loop, so it could be a loop of edges. If I do Alt C, actually no, it can't be. It has to be edge slice. Not sure. I think it's only a polygon loop. So I'll select a loop of polygons, and you can do that by, let's say I want to select this loop that's going around this part of the cube. I could do this and go in and select, click shift click all the time to keep adding to my selection, and then do the loop slice, and it will cut along this loop a certain amount of edges edge loops. So the count here is 2. If I do only 1, it will cut like this. It will add basically a loop in my already existing loop, and I can do any number of it, and it will be driven by a certain amount of parameters. So if you do uniform in the mode here, you do the 6 count, it will add 6 edge loops in that loop, and then you could, you know, keep working, and then I don't know, making it bigger or so, or whatever. But you can also select this loop by selecting 2 polygons that are on the loop, and then L, and it will finish it for you. It's sometimes really useful. If you do this, for example, I do L, I don't have to go around the whole thing and select everything. Same with edges. You select only 2 that are together, and do L, and it will select the whole thing. Really much better, much quicker than just going around and selecting manually. So, okay, so that's loop slice, and you can add some. You can basically add some geometry and do things like this, and, you know, make it bigger or whatever. There's more options like that. You could do it many different ways. You could also do just a bevel for what I just did. L, make it bigger. You know, it's the same thing, but it's just different ways of achieving that. Bevel I showed you, extrude I showed you. The other one is, I think, a bit more advanced. Don't need to know everything. So that's only vertex tools. It's the same tools, but it's only for vertices. So if I do this bevel, let's just make it level 0, so it's not too complicated. You could do that kind of bevel, and then you can add to it, making it more rounded as you go, like that. So it could be useful in some situations. There's does this one work that way? I'm not sure. Okay, just learned a new one. Let's drag and weld. Say I want this vertex to weld with that one, just to join. Do drag weld and then snap it to that one. And if you notice here, the snapping option came online once I choose that, because the tool works with the snapping. But also you could use that snapping, like normally it's off. If you move something, it's free, and you just choose your own spot where you stop moving it, and it's there. You could also do snapping, and if you have that selected, then it will snap to the already existing objects. So sometimes, let's say you have this, and I want to move this and touch this one. Instead of trying to do it manually, wait, oops, I'm snapping on. Instead of trying to do it manually, where you actually can't, you could try to really get close enough, you know, and then most of the time it will work, will be enough. But sometimes you really want to make it perfect. You will use the snapping tool, and it will just snap to certain geometry that's already there. So isn't snapping. There's so many things in this program. I can merge things too. Can I do this like that? Do this and this. Merge. Automatic. Oh no. We'll merge only the close ones, so that doesn't matter. Well, these tools are basically the same tools that we saw earlier for edges and vertices. So So that's all fine, and I think this everything you need to know to get started, just to have fun. As long as you just practice with it and see, just see what each one does, and you'll get used to it eventually. It's just there's a lot of them in the beginning. It's a bit complicated, but as you saw, you could do things in a few different ways. It's like Photoshop. When you get used to it, it's all good.